Hey YouTube frongs, welcome back to another video. This time for weapon comparisons we are going to be testing out Rosaria. My Rosaria is currently C0, but I do have all 6 of her constellations ready. Hope you guys enjoyed the Tartag video. That was the previous one. This one we're going to be splitting up into 2 videos actually. Rosaria is a very flexible character. She can be built many different ways. So we are going to split this video series up into 2 segments. The first, which is today, we're going to be testing her capabilities as a Cryo support. So that means that our artifacts, we're going to be using 2 Noblesse and 2 Blizzard Destroyer. Alright? We have a selection of weapons to test. If you guys have watched my Xiao and Hu Tao videos, you guys will know that I have a decent selection of spears ready to test out. So for Cryo support Rosaria, we're going to be using basically the similar weapons to a physical test, but we're going to not be using Crescent Pike and Dragon Spine. So that means for a Cryo support Rosaria, we're going to be looking at 2 energy recharge weapons, the prototype Starglitter, Favonius Lance. I do not have any other 5 stars. And then for the 4-star other weapons, we have Deathmatch Blackcliff Pole. We are also going to test the Lithic Spear at 1 stack and 3 stacks. This means how many characters in the party hail from Liyue. And then finally, from the 4-star section, we have Dragon's Bane, which we're going to be testing mainly for the Elemental Mastery and the damage boost on Reverse Melt. 5-star weapons, we have a Primordial Jade Winged Spear, and then we have the Staff of Homa at R5. So these 2 weapons will be the only weapons at level 90. They're going to be our 5-star tests. Unfortunately, I don't have R5 Jade Winged Spear, so testing may be skewed a little bit heavily towards the Homa, but hopefully you guys can forgive that. Yeah, the way that we're going to test things out with Cryo support Rosaria, we are not going to be paying attention to her normal or charge attack damages at all. We're going to be paying specifically attention to the E and the Q. So we're going to be doing 2 things. One is normal damage with E, just the cryo damage, and the second is reverse melt with E. So that means I'm going to be applying pyro and then using E, and hopefully we crit. Now we know that with these spears that there is a wide range of secondary stats that we can get, right? So we have energy recharge from these 2. We have a massive 33 crit rate from the Deathmatch. Blackcliff has 50 crit damage. Primordial Jade is 22 crit rate, and Staff of Homa has 66.2 crit damage. So in order to account for these massive changes, I will probably be changing the mask that I'm using. All right, so my mask will be switching between crit rate and crit damage. I'll show you guys in just a second. I just want to get through all of the weapons that we're going to test. All right, so a total of 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. So 8 weapons to test for Cryo support Rosaria. That is the focus for today. We're only going to be doing E and Q. And then for the physical damage portion, we'll be doing another day. These are the stats they're going to be looking at. I have Black Tassel on because I wanted you guys to show you her stats raw with no boost at all, because the Black Tassel has HP percent and damage from slimes. So basically, these are just my artifact stats. So we have 72 crit rate to start with and 150 crit damage. All right, so this is about a 1-to-2 ratio. I tried to mix and match, and then our recharge is 115% base before we add energy recharge weapons, and then our cryo damage is 61.6. all right, the artifacts that we're going to be using are 2 Noblesse and 2 Blizzard Destroyer. I'm trying to maximize her E and Q damage, right, because that is her support capability. Our artifacts are as follows. We have a little bit of energy recharge, crit rate, crit damage. I'll go through these pretty quickly so that you guys can pause if you guys want to see anything. So 2 Noblesse and 2 Blizzard Destroyer, Feather, Timepiece, Cryo Damage Cup, which is the offset piece, and the Noblesse mask. So this mask will be alternating, all right? So we have this mask, and we also have this mask. So they're not 1-to-1. You can't really compare them purely, but it's the best crit rate. It's the best sub-stat crit rate, main stat crit damage mask that I have. This one has a solid 25.6 crit damage. This one maintains roughly the same recharge, has an increase of attack percent, and slightly lower crit rate. So hopefully that will be okay enough to compare to. So those are our starting sequences for Rosaria. Again, she is C0. I do have 6 constellations for her, but I'm not going to be using any for this particular test. I don't want to increase the level of her E or Q at all. We are going to be dealing with all level 6 talents. So you guys can be able to see the E does 82% to 190%. We'll be trying to figure out both of these damages. And the Q, we're going to be paying attention to first the initial skill damage, which is 146 plus 213. And then we'll also be watching for Iceland's DOT. All right, we're going to be looking for the crit damages, but hopefully we'll also be able to calculate. We'll see how that goes. Calculate average damage, sorry, with non-crits. Okay, our team is Mona, who is going to be breaking the pyro core on the pyro Regisvine. So I cannot test this on a good old friend Cryo Regisvine because he has resistance against cryo damage. So for fairness, we're going to be testing this on pyro Regisvine. All right, for melt, we're going to be using Huta to be able to apply the burn here. So each test will consist of two things. We'll be first testing pure, just no melt damage at all, just her E and Q. Then I'll get my recharge back and we'll try melt. Cool. So if I switch this over, our first weapon we're going to be testing is prototype Starglitter because it is the F2P energy recharge support weapon that you might use. Our stats become 1.4k attack, 72 crit rate, 150 crit damage, and 157.4 energy recharge with this weapon. All right, so this weapon gives a solid 41.9% recharge at level 80. All right, first test is R1 prototype Starglitter at level 80. All right. So we did 2k and 4.8k. 4k, 4.16. 4.16 and then 5.2. All right. We had 82 to 190 and then we had 146. So these numbers do roughly match up. The E was 2k plus 4.8 and the Q was 4.1 plus 6 for the initial swing. And the DOT was 5.2. This was without melt at all. All right, so I'm going to preemptively switch Huta to Klee here. All right, so if you guys are wondering why Klee is on the team, it's because I realized that in order to test out reverse melt on the Q, I need to be able to proc pyro beforehand, which might be a little difficult. So Klee is going to be easier since she's a catalyst user. So we're going to try that, okay? All right, so I think, yeah, we do have everything set up. Let us try to test reverse melt with prototype. All right. 6.8, 10. Proc's too fast. 8.7? 8.7, I believe that was. Should also mention that Rosaria does have 56 EM with this build. So that the increase in vaporized melt damage is a little bit stronger than the expected 50%. So if that's the numbers that you guys see, then you guys understand that is why. We can go back now and test reverse melt on the E damage, which should be fairly simple. Okay. So we have a 3.4 to 7.96 or 8. 3.4 to 8. All right, so that should be good for the prototype Starglitter test. So with this build, again, 1.4k attack, and we have 157 recharge, which is, I think, the highest recharge we will have with all our weapons. Now, we're going to be testing an R5 Favonius Lance at level 80. And with this build, our base attack goes up by slightly. And then Elemental Mastery is still 56. And then our recharge goes down by a slight bit. So now we're at 143.5% recharge. But the thing is, Favonius' passive will be generating more particles for team utility over time. So that's a plus. 5k, we gotta do the E again. 2.2 and 5. So that should be about right. I'm gonna reset really quick. So 2.2, that is correct. We did not crit on either of those hits. None of these. 5.5 seems to be the tick damage, which is expected. Okay. On says Q damage. So 6.4. We still don't get the initial tick. 6.4, 5.5. We're verifying this damage is about right. All right, let's try to get the first proc on the Q. With enough testing, we'll have all these numbers, so not too worried. Very nice. 4.35. All right, so that should be expected. Favonius lands slightly stronger. Now we're going to test melt. $7.2, 10.5. Okay. 10.5 again. 9.16. Perfect. Okay. Testing E now. Get Pyro on. And 8.4 on the second tick. 3.6 and then 8.4, I believe. So, these are the energy recharge weapons. Favonius Lance is slightly stronger in terms of damage and more team utility. So I think for cryo support, definitely a positive choice. Now we move on to the crit weapons. So let's first test out Deathmatch. Now, testing out Deathmatch means that my base attack... Sorry, not my base attack. My crit rate goes up to 105%. With the passive of Deathmatch, I'm getting an increased attack by 24%, which is pretty significant. But in order to offset this massive amount of crit rate, I'm going to be using crit damage mask. So this particular test with the Deathmatch, we'll be using a crit damage mask. Our stats become 1.58 attack, 84.8 crit rate, and 186.8 crit damage. Lower the recharge, but much more damage. Yeah? So, this is the prowess of the Deathmatch. With the massive amount of crit rate, it allows you to build a crit damage mask. Let's see how it performs. Okay? Q damage. 5.2, 7.6. And then the tick. 6.6. 2.6 and then 6. Okay, so this is a fair bit of a boost. It's about a 20% boost. This is all accurate. 2.6 to 6. This one may be, by the way, the Deathmatch may be tougher to overlay non-crit because we're not critting enough. So might be difficult to display, but we'll try our best. So this test, still using Deathmatch. 85, 186.8. Going to be attempting reverse melt. Okay. 8.7. But we didn't crit the second tick. 11k melt. Nice. So we were managed to get the 11k tick. And then we'll have to see the second swing of the Q. So based off of math though, I believe we did 4.4. It would be about 12.6. I think that's fairly accurate. I'm gonna go with that then. 12.6 should be about right based off of that intermediate calculation. So basically, the amount of non-crit damage we would be multiplying by 2.868, and that gave me 12.6, which is fairly correlative to all the other numbers. They all seem about right. Okay, so 12.6 should be accurate for the reverse melt on the Q tick. We just did a 4.4 non-crit, so. All right, let's hopefully we crit and verify 12.6. 12.7, very close. All right, so E reverse melt time. Okay. Neither crit. Try again. Okay. 4.3, 10.1, that's better. All right, that was a deathmatch test. And now, go to Blackcliff, which is the reverse, right? Unfortunately, we don't have an attack passive, so we are going to be doing less damage. So without, if Blackcliff had some stacks, it would definitely be able to compete. But you are going to see a little bit less damage because Deathmatch has a 24% attack boost because there's only one enemy. We'll switch the mask back to the crit rate piece. And these are our Blackcliff pulse stats. We're looking at 72 crit rate with 200 crit damage. So slightly more crit damage, but less crit rate than the Deathmatch. So it's a trade-off, right? The attack is a little bit lower since we don't have any Blackcliff stacks on, but that should be equated quite decently. So we're going to be seeing, we might be seeing relatively equal numbers here. We'll see. Okay. 1.6, 7.2. And then what are the ticks? 6.28. Okay. Third time's a charm. 4.95. Perfect. So 4.95. And then the E damage is what? 2.47, 5.61, 5.76. Then I feel like we can still test reverse melt as well. All right, so before we test Q reverse melt damage, we're gonna test E reverse melt damage because it's much less complicated. 4.1, 9.55. 8.2, 12. Perfect. And then the tick, we have to 10.4. Perfect. All right, so that finished the testing of the Blackcliff, the 4-star crit weapons. So I changed my mind. For Lithic Spear, instead of doing 1 stack and 3 stack, because she hails from Mondstadt, I'm just going to do 2 stack. So while we have the Lithic Spear, I need to change my team so that it has 2 Leah characters. We're going to use Mona to break the core, and I'm going to use Zhongli and Hu Tao as our 2 Leah characters. So in this particular lineup, Rosaria with 2 stacks of Lithic Spear. She is at 86 crit rate and 150 crit damage. So that means from this, she gained 14 crit rate, which is about right. So she was at 72, now she's at 86. If we did use a crit damage mask, which is an option, we have 65 crit rate. So for the purposes of this testing, I'm going to maintain higher crit rate for ease of testing. But know that the numbers that you will see might be slightly lower, right? So we gained 22% attack and 14% crit rate from R5. So again, with this weapon, we have much higher attack because we're gaining higher base attack with 22% attack. So at 1.85 attack, 86 crit rate, and 150 crit damage. Okay. 7.76. And the tick is 6.7. All right. E damage 2.65, 6.2. Slightly stronger than the Deathmatch with its maximized stats. This is with 2 stack at R580. Deathmatch is only R1, so that is a big difference on refinement level. Refinement level matters quite a bit for Lithic, so. Okay. 5.3, perfect. 2.65, it's all the same. Very nice. Okay, so we can test reverse melt on the E here. Okay. 4.4, 10.26, perfect. Now we're testing reverse melt with the Q. All right. Proc. Okay. 8.8, 12.88. And then the melt tick. 11.2, perfect. We'll go over the weapons at the end as usual. All right, so that finishes the Lithic 2-stack test, where we had 2 Leah characters in the party to bring this boost up to 22% attack and 14% crit rate. Her stats 1.85k attack and then 86 crit rate. We did not switch the master crit damage because crit rate for testing purposes is a little easier, and also you guys can visualize that even if she does this much damage, the crit rate is also very high. But that being said, this is with R5 Lithic Spear. With the lower refinement Lithic Spear, the amount of crit rate and attack that you gain will be lower. I did only do 2 stacks though, so that may offset things a little bit, which is good for relative comparisons. Now we're going to test out the other miscellaneous weapon, Dragon's Bane. So of these spears that I have, this is the only spear that has Elemental Mastery, and the passive is increases damage against opponents affected by Hydra or Pyro by 36%. Now this passive affects the elemental damage numbers. So we have 61.6 cryo damage here. You can imagine this as plus 36, so it's at 97 now with this weapon, only when attacking things affected by Pyro. So this will only increase the reverse melt damage, and with Elemental Mastery, we'll be seeing even bigger numbers. So with Dragon's Bane, this is a perfect test to see how much does EQ do on reverse melt, and that's what we're gonna do. The attack is much lower, 1.35 attack, 1.35k attack, 72 crit rate, 150, the standard, with the same amount of recharge. All right. As you guys can see, Dragon's Bane R5 level 80 test. No melt at first, so we're gonna be seeing weaker numbers. All right. Q damage. 4.65, 5.7. And then the tick is crit 4.95. And that is, as expected, much weaker. So the Q's first hit did more than expected here, which means I'm going to retest. 3.9. That makes more sense. Test E damage. 1.9, 5, 4.5. 1.95 and 4.53. That makes sense. That's all right. Now we're going to test reverse melt damage. Should be significantly higher. We'll see. All right. 5.1, 11.9. That is significant. That is the highest that we've been seeing so far among the 4-star weapons. And that is utilizing all the positives of the Dragon's Bane. Okay. Apply Pyro. 10, 14.6. And then the tick. 12.7 is the tick. Very nice. 40.65. 12.7 is the Q tick on melt, which is fairly massive. Those are all the 4-star weapons. Now we move forward to the 5-star crit weapons. So we have Primordial Jade Winged Spear, and we have Staff of Homa. So first, let's use Primordial Jade Winged Spear because the tests are obviously going to be skewed toward the R5 Homa being higher damage. Now with Jade Spear, there's one problem, right? So crit rate is too high. So we will be moving to a crit damage mask here. This drops our crit rate back down to 73 with our crit damage at 186.8. This leads our attack to be 1.9k. In order to maximize her damage, I would like her to get max stacks first. I'll be focusing on getting max stacks, and then we will pop the core and test the damage. So what we want to do is we want to get max stacks on her before we pop the core. So how we do that is I start with Mona, get the core down to a sliver of HP, and then whack with Rosaria until I max stacks. I'm gonna whack it now. Watch for the glow on max stacks. There it is. Okay. 7.5, 10.9. And then the tick, 9.5. That is the difference between 4-star and 5-star weapons. So at max stacks, obviously there are 10 levels more, right? So R190 Primordial Jade Spear, we had a 7.5 into a 10.9, and then it ticks for 9.5. So let's proceed to the E's then. 3.76 and then 8.7. So those are the EQ numbers. Let's test reverse melt on the E, and then we move to the Q. All those numbers were max stacked, by the way, because I'm able to do max stacks relatively easily. That means that the damage output is maximized for the Primordial Jade Spear, even though the other spears aren't. So keep that in mind. 6.25, 14.55. 6.25, 14.55. That's stronger than Dragon's Bane R5 level 80 by a pretty significant margin. Now keep in mind that when I'm doing this, I am using a crit damage mask. But even with a crit damage mask, I'm still maintaining 73 crit rate. So the higher base attack at level 90 plays a huge portion in the increased damage here. Did not crit. 18.1 though. That is massive. Melt tick, 15.75. Wow. That is pretty insane. All right, let's get our ultis back and try that one more time. Make sure we have stacks. Bouton, apply melt. 12.4, 18.1. Perfect. Then we need to try E damage. 6.25. 14.55, just to verify. Cool. So, Jade Spear with max stack, pretty insane damage. Even on reverse melt, it still outscales the Dragon's Bane by a little bit. Solid 20%, I would say. So, even though the Dragon's Bane probably lacks, well, it is 10 levels lower, even though it's R5, which means the base attack is significantly lower. Primordial Jade, giving that additional damage boost also helps close the line a little bit. That should be expected for a 5-star weapon, though. All right, Staff of Homa. With Staff of Homa, we are definitely going back to the crit rate mask. All right, so Staff of Homa stats, 21k HP. She has 2,000 attack, 72 crit rate, 216 crit damage. All right, but no additional gimmicks on this weapon. All right, and nothing that we need to do for Primordial Jade. One thing to note is that I'm not going to test this with low HP. So the damage that you see here is the minimum amount of damage with Staff of Homa. If she's lower HP, she gets even more attack. So her damage increases slightly. So for our purposes, we're going to minimize that and just do 2k attack, 72, 216. 7.4, 10.8. That is right under the Primordial Jade. The tick is 9.4. Wow, that's actually just like 1.5% below Primordial Jade at max stack. Get the E going. Second phase. Okay, here we go. 3.7, 8.6. Damage is very similar. Primordial Jade. And that's at R5. So, just testing E reverse melt damage here. 6.1, 14.3. So now that we have everything back again, it's time to test out Q reverse melt. Okay. Utal apply pyro. 12.2, no crit. But the melt tick is how much? 15.55. You just need the second swing on the Q on reverse melt. Okay. Hopefully we crit. 17.9. Perfect. All right. Well, that concludes all 8 of the weapons. Closing remarks. Prototype Starglitter. It is the lowest level, I think, of a weapon that you can use on her. It is free, right? So you can craft it for free. The damage is significantly weaker than most of the other weapons. The other weapons have standard, I would say, 15% stronger than the prototype. So the prototype Starglitter is a copium level weapon, is the lowest base weapon that you could use. It is weaker than the Favonius Lance because the Favonius Lance has higher base attack slightly. And the Favonius Lance has team utility, which is really important as a cryo support if she's not the main source of damage. Favonius Lance is about 5% stronger than the prototype Starglitter. Has also team utility. Then we move on to the crit weapons, which are both relatively similar. So Deathmatch and Blackcliff Pole are both about 10% stronger than the energy recharge weapons. They both maintain, the Deathmatch maintains slightly higher crit rate than the Blackcliff Pole. But the Deathmatch did cheat a little bit with its passive. It did have 24% more attack, which with the Blackcliff Pole, if you did have about 2 to 3 stacks, you would be equating that value. So these two weapons are fairly equivalent. In the test, it will show Blackcliff is slightly weaker, but that is because there are 0 stacks to it. Now we go on to the miscellaneous 4-star weapon. If you have R5 Lithic Spear, it's a fairly solid stat stick. With 2 Leah characters, in this case, if you are lucky and happen to have Zhongli and Xingqiu, which are great additional supports for her, then you'll be able to get 2 stacks. And 2 stacks means you get an additional anywhere between like 15 to 20% attack, and anywhere between like 6 to 7 to 14 crit rate. I'm not sure exactly what it is at R1. So 14 versus 7 crit rate, and then 2 stacks here would be 22 attack and then 14 crit rate, which is a pretty big boost. With Lithic Spear, it is doing about the same amount of damage as Deathmatch and Blackcliff Pole. So all these 3 weapons, this is at R5, by the way, 2 stacks, are similar in choices. Now, Dragon's Bane, I think, is fairly obvious in terms of the weakness and damage, right? So the normal non-melt damage for EQ are about equivalent to Favonius and Starglitter. So it is on the very low tier of initial damage, but the reverse melt damage with Dragon's Bane, which is what the weapon is meant to do, beats out all of the other 4-star weapons, so in terms of E and Q damage. So comparing to Deathmatch and Blackcliff, which we can say did about 12% less damage than Dragon's Bane. So Dragon's Bane is about 12% more, 12% stronger, and then the Q is about 10% stronger. So Dragon's Bane is a solid choice, especially if you had Hu Tao initially and you just wanted to try Rosaria out. It's actually pretty decent for reverse melting. Now we move on to the big daddies, the 5-star crit weapons. So R1 Primordial Jade Winged Spear at max stacks. So that not only means that we had 7 by 3.2 attack, but we also had 12% increased damage dealt. And that damage dealt is in the elemental department, right? It's all damage. So that is here in this portion, right? So this would have been 73.6% with a Primordial Jade. And that damage beat out Homa by literally like 1 to 2%. So a very small increase over Homa, and Homa was R5, right? So these 2 weapons are basically equivalent. I would say R1 Primordial Jade will eke out a little bit more damage than R1 Staff of Homa at max stacks. You can also cheat by using, not cheat, but you're also able to use a crit damage mask here. You have to use a crit chance mask here in order to optimize, right? So if you wanted to do a brutal Staff of Homa build and only do crit damage, you would probably be seeing higher damage, but you'd have lower consistent crits. So consider both these weapons are fairly stronger, and compared to the 4-star weapons, Primordial Jade at max stacks and R5 Homa, both, they are 25 to 30% stronger than any of the 4-star weapons in any situation. So even Dragon's Bane on the reverse melt, which is what it's meant for, is still solidly 20% weaker than Primordial Jade and Staff of Homa. This is also not accounting the 10 level difference. So the 10 level difference on Primordial Jade and Staff of Homa will also equate to about a 7% damage difference. So you could assume that they're just at max potential, they're about 15 to 20% stronger. So that should wrap up all of these weapons. Hope you guys enjoyed the testing. It was rather difficult testing this time. But we had to bully the Pyro Registine this time. And that is the end of the Cryo support weapon test, where we tested just purely E and Q damage. Second half of this video, not the second half, but the second series of this video will be focused more on the physical damage portion, because she is, take a look at her constellations, right? She does have some form of physical aspect to her, or normal attack damage, right? We will see for the physical damage test what we decide to do. In that particular instance, if we do physical damage test, we will not be using Prototype, not be using Favonius. Instead, we will take into account Dragon Spine Spear and Crescent Pike. So I hope you guys look forward to that. Thank you guys very much for supporting this particular video, for the Cryo support. And I hope you guys like the weapon comparison videos. And I hope that we can continue providing decent quality content. All right, see you later, YouTube frogs. Thanks for watching.